This is a trigger warning. During this podcast, we discuss suicide, and some people might find it disturbing. If you or someone you know is suicidal, please contact your physician, go to your local ER, or call the suicide prevention hotline in your country. For the United States, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Or message the crisis text line at 741-741. Both programs are free, confidential, and provide support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Welcome back to the Security Unhappy Hour, where we bring together a group of security professionals and naturally cheery folks to discuss topics in the cybersecurity community, share knowledge, learn, teach, and exchange ideas. Before we get started, it is important to point out that the views and opinions expressed on the Security Unhappy Hour and related websites are those of the hosts, guests, and authors, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any one company. Today, my co-hosts, Lisa Bradley, Katie Noble, Krob, and I are going to talk about work-life balance, or the lack thereof, in the cybersecurity industry. Most of us come from the PCERT world. Krob, you've worked in CCERT though, right?
I have worked CCERT. I've done architecture. I've done consulting. I've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So, but work-life balance has led to a professional burnout in our industry because it's really hard to maintain, right?
It's taken an already challenging situation, the lack of talent, and then it's applied a lot of pressure on top of the existing people within the field.
Yeah.
And by lack of talent, you mean not enough talented
There's not enough
people in the
bodies.
workplace?
There's not
People
enough
in the
people. Well, because most of the solutions for burnout is to make sure that you have a normal amount of workload, and you can't have a normal amount of workload when you can't hire the professionals because there's not enough of them. So they're saying, like, they say have stats like that, you know, it takes months and months to fill a security professional role, and therefore you're doing the double of the workload or triple or quadruple at the time until you could potentially put that person even in or find someone to hire in. So, you know, all those normal solutions that they give you for burnout, it doesn't, you know, that one doesn't even work to help us out.
Right, because there's like 300 of us in the world. And the only way we get anybody is by finding people who are already doing the job. Because if you try to train somebody, if you try to try to increase your people, if you want to hire people, it's hard to find people who are already qualified to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
You spend about a year and a half training somebody, and then when you're training somebody, your workload is also going to be cut in half because of the need to train.
Right. And it's interesting because, you know, I think if you're potentially in a bigger security team, you might have the luxury that you could actually take someone more junior and spend the time to train them. But if you're, you know, in a smaller team that you need someone just to come in and get the ball rolling, you don't have that luxury. Or, you know, so that can make it a little difficult too.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
As we all sit there, I think it's funny because I feel like we're talking about burnout, and you look at us and we're all like, yeah, like we're probably burnt out right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think COVID didn't help. I think before COVID, we were on the way to, like, our career field's very demanding. And I don't know about you guys, but I have this problem of all of my hobbies are also cyber related. So it never turns off, right? So, like, I'm walking home from work, and before COVID even, I'm walking home from work and I'm listening to a cybersecurity podcast, or I get on social media and it's InfoSec Twitter. And it's like, it never actually goes away because, you know, I'm part of a social club in DC called the Army Navy Club, but I'm also part of the Army Navy Cyber Club. So, like, everything I do is still on
That's
And
interesting.
that's actually, when you're a hiring manager, that's a quality you look for, is someone that's passionate. They have a home lab. They eat, live, and breathe this stuff. They're doing it on their own spare time. So again, and for this topic, it's actually a bit of a detriment for us once we have that employee around. That it's
Right.
hard to get that break to
because
reset.
you get that stress fatigue, right? I mean, even though that may be something that you're passionate about, if you're always switched on, if you're never turned off, that constant steady stress requires you to build a degree of endurance above what others would have for the kind of job that you do in the security space. And let's face it, there's a lot of different jobs in the cybersecurity space, but that high constant endurance stress can really have an impact on your sense of personal identity, your hobbies, your home life. It can even reduce your sense of accomplishment because you don't have those normal bell curves of, starting a project, working through the project, and then completing it.
Right. And I think that's, so there's often times where it's like a thankless job. All of a sudden there's a breach or something and you're reacting and working to resolve it. And then the question is, well, why did you let it happen in the first place? Right. Where sometimes you have no control of that. Right. Some hacker, was able to find something that, even though you had your best practices in place, there's always going to be vulnerabilities. They're going to be able to find something. They're going to find another door that they could open. And so, oftentimes I think some of the higher up security leads also get, the hack if or the axe, not the hack, the axe. If they're, they're the scope gate, or what is it? I can't remember. What is it? A scapegoat. Scapegoat. I knew I'd figure it out eventually. So it's a thankless job, and then all of a sudden, you might end up being the scapegoat for the company on top of it, which is stressful.
It's interesting. There was, when we were doing a little bit of research for this topic, there's a lot of statistics out there, and we'll touch on the statistics, but I thought there was an interesting article in Dark Reading called Beyond Burnout, What is Cybersecurity Doing to Us? And there was an excerpt from that I think is worth reading. It says, a CISO's leader rarely has an understanding of the role of CISO and the security program, let alone the value they bring to the organization or the support they will need to bring this value effectively. And this was by Simpson, it was a CISO of Armis, ARMIS. And he said, when no one really understands what you do or why you do it, you need to be better. And this is, I don't know about all of you, but this is something that I've experienced in this space, is that you have to operate at a much higher performing level because people around you don't understand what you're doing. You have to operate with greater integrity and transparency, and you have to spend more time building relationships and trust so that people understand what you do. And that can be exhausting by itself because they don't get what you do. So you feel like at some point you turn around and say, am I really doing something that matters, because I have to explain it so many times.
You have to constantly validate your existence. And that's,
it can feel that way,
Yes.
right?
And you have to often be the one that's pointing out the negative, or pointing out, hey, did you see this recent breach, or did you see this? Like, you're the bearer of the bad news. So I always felt like people loved that I did what I did for them and I was good at it, but I was also their worst enemy, because when I came knocking on the door, it meant that they potentially could lose their weekend because of something that they now have to, go work on. So yeah, that's a little hard.
Yeah, I've said it before in other places, and it seems to me to still be true. It's like everyone hates PCERT, and it's kind of that, like, I mean, it's hyperbolic, right? So people don't hate PCERT, but our role is really to facilitate the disclosure, and so people don't know what it is that you're doing, and so you have to go tell a product engineer that's donated their entire lives to building that product. Maybe they have 10, 15 years of education just to get that far, and you have to go tell them they have an ugly baby. And
I love telling people their baby's ugly.
I know, but like,
Well,
it's hard because they don't want to. That's hard because they have to then accept they have an ugly baby, and then they're going to go tell their boss that you told them that they had an ugly baby, and then they're going to tell their boss, and their boss is going to talk to your boss, and your boss is going to say, you need to not tell them they have an ugly baby in such a mean way, Katie. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to like be polite, but they didn't take it that way. And then you got a researcher who's also trying to knock down the door because you're not moving fast enough.
And you're trying to protect the brand, of your company and your customers. So it's like you get every angle, and you're often working with people that can be difficult. You're working with the product teams that are usually understaffed in the engineering part in the first place. And then you just added on a whole huge workload to them when they're supposed to be doing these fun little features. And then you have the researchers who you have to try to figure out what their whole goal is and how to work with them and negotiate with them. And then you work with the other people in the industry that, let's just say it, we're fun security people, but not everybody is fun and goofy to hang around with. So then you have the execs not understanding what's going on. So yeah, there's a lot of different angles. Oh, and then of course legal. We can't leave out legal and PR and comms, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of angles and people and networking. And you tend to know more about the overall business and the product lines more than anyone else. You have to know every angle of the company and know all the who's within a company, which makes things difficult too.
Which is kind of what Josh was saying, was that eventually, like, you sort of get to the point where you're compensating, right? So you have to make it your business to know all of those other pieces, so that every time you have a transaction, a disclosure or a facilitation event, you're trying to smooth that out for yourself. So you have to go above and beyond and know everybody else's job so that you know who to go to. And it's exhausting. I mean, you've got to, I'm not saying you're doing everybody else's job, but I'm saying that you have to know everybody else's job so that you know who to talk to for each thing. And you spend your life convincing people and giving people bad news and convincing them that it's going to be okay.
And changing culture. I feel like I've spent a lot of time trying to change culture, for code that was written a long time ago. And now you have to say, no, security is important, and this is why, and have everybody. So I sort of feel like I'm a salesman sometimes too, or saleswoman, salesperson. When I do the job, and then you have to know how to do the metrics and the reporting for the execs, and we're making it sound maybe a little too scary, because it's definitely rewarding. Well, it does have its rewards, and I think for me, I have a new reward lately. My new reward is that when I talk with people that normally don't understand my world at all, they now understand it, because like SolarWinds, for example, right? They all heard of it. They all saw what was going on in the news. And Heartbleed was a long time ago too. But so now they're like, oh, Lisa, I'm figuring you're having a bad week this week. Like, I saw something in the news. And so that part's been sort of exciting. Not that they know that I'm having a hard week, but that they actually are starting to relate with what I do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's with you. Yeah. So part of it is just the grind of the job. And just to back up a little bit, we talked about all of us come from a PCERT background, product security, incident response, vulnerability management, handling and disclosure, which we talk about in the previous episode in more detail. If you want to learn more about that, you can. But there is other elements. There are, security operations centers, there's CSERTs, there are people that work in policy, and they work in regulatory agencies. There are auditors. And the cybersecurity space, the security researchers, they all experience different degrees of pressures on them because of their level of expertise, because of the constant stream of work and stress and challenges that come our way. And I think also the fact that we don't have people that largely understand the world that we're in. Not that they don't want to, but they have their own expertise, and they're focused on those areas that they're trying to support for the business. And I think when you look at some of the statistics, and this is going to what Lisa was saying about how this all sounds so negative, we were looking at BitSite talked about there was an article or blog post about shocking IT cybersecurity burnout statistics. 77% of U.S. corporate employees have experienced burnout at their current job. 57% of workers in the tech industry are currently suffering from burnout. 65% of SOC or security operations center professionals say stress has caused them to think about quitting. 91% of CISOs say they suffer from moderate or high stress, which I mean, that's sort of for folks that are in the cybersecurity space, that's a no duh moment, right? So no kidding, right? The CISO job is a tough, high pressure job,
The average tenure of the corporate CISO right now is under 2 years.
which
Wow.
is remarkably
Shelf
short,
life.
right? Yeah.
That's
And
Either
then-
crazy.
you get thrown out or you can't take it and you walk out.
And then you
I
couple
should be
that
very
with
thankful for mine. He's been in there for longer than 2
63%
years.
of organizations are experiencing a shortage of IT staff dedicated to cybersecurity. And this goes back to I think the challenge that we have in our industry, that you're burning people out because of the constant pressure. They may have a passion for what they do, but at the same time, we don't have enough people that have either experience or knowledge or the interest to be in this space because it's so high pressure.
Yeah. Do you know what the stat is? They said that by 2021, there's going to be 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs. Isn't that crazy? That was in a Forbes article where they were talking about as the end of 2020 approaches, how many we're going to see with it. And then there's other articles that's talking about, normally the burnout is medical. And right now, obviously, with COVID, a lot of medical people are definitely getting burnout. So I don't want to disrespect them. But they were saying that cybersecurity is starting to become, right up there with the medical and the law fields about the burnout rate, especially, with people working from home and all the new type of outlets of cybersecurity type of incidents. Yeah, it's been crazy. And yeah, I don't know. But I have to tell you, like you. So let's try to change some positive in here, and then we'll probably go back to the negative again. But if you think about why do you do it? What do you like? Like for me, I said my new thing is I'm liking that other people realize what I'm doing. But for me, I always like that every day I learn something new, and that's pretty cool. It's a new incident, it's a new angle, it's a new approach. Even though you would think you have your processes straight, something big comes in and you have to change and make a new decision, make a new risk decision every day. So I really like that aspect of it. Crow, what about you? What's your favorite thing?
I like the intimate relationship with the business, because at the end of the day, everything we do helps enable them to be more effective. And I like that role as the trusted advisor.
Katie, you're next.
I think it's funny that you say that, like, you like the explaining to people and getting that, like, the rush of seeing when they finally get it. You can kind of see that in their eyes. They're like, oh, and it's like that's like the teacher's rush. I think it was funny to me a couple of months ago. One of the guys on my team, I was explaining to him because he was like saying, "Oh, well, it'll be okay once we get past the November disclosure." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 hold up there, bro." There will always be the next thing. So if you're basing your life on, I'm just going to get past this thing and then it's going to calm down and I'm going to be able to like have a life again, you are in the wrong field. And that in and of itself is a wonderful thing. And he joked with me. He's like, Katie, I'm never going to call you if I need to be hyped up. You are a terrible hype man. and my thing is like, look, yeah, but I'll never lie to you. It's okay. This is a high tempo kind of high ops environment where every single day, by the very nature of the thing that we do, no one has ever seen it before. That's the definition of a 0-day vulnerability. No one has ever seen it before, which means you can't create a playbook. You can't create a checklist. You can't say, this is how I'm going to do every single thing. You can have general kind of guidelines and general procedures and policies, but every single day is a treasure hunt and every single day is an adventure. And with that, like some people might say that that's a negative, but I see that as a positive. That means that every single day I get to learn something new, do something new, look at something that has never been done before. And that is like inspiring. To me, that's wonderful.
And we're needed. As much as they don't realize they need us, they need us.
Right.
They,
But
they
you
need
can't
us.
you can't go through life thinking that like, oh well, it's gonna be fine after next week. Once this thing happens,
Oh, no.
we're gonna be fine. No.
There's no lull. There's no lull.
You might have little lulls, but like
Little.
And it's funny, like from the like, so I come from the psychological background, right? And I used to there's this like thing about stress, right? So your body can't tell the difference between real stress and fake stress. So real stress, say someone is shooting at you, real stress. Your body's going to dump adrenaline and you're going to have physical reactions to that. Fake stress, your boss is yelling at you because something just hit the news and there's nothing that you can do about it right this second, and you will work on it and it will, but that added high level of, oh gosh, we got to do something about this right now, that's different, but your body interprets it exactly the same way. And so if you're always on, if everything's on fire all the time, then nothing is ever on fire.
Yeah. I remember having to figure out the cry wolf syndrome. We talked about high profile. When do you ring the bell or you don't, right? And I remember the one incident that came in, and my boss was buying me dinner because to get delivered at work, because I just couldn't even take the time to drive home from the office, and then all the lights went out in the building because they weren't expecting somebody to be there that late, and I like literally was using like, I don't even know if there was a flashlight on the phone at the time. No, and I was like, oh my God, I got to get out of here and go down the
Did the
dark
phone have a
stairwell.
cord?
Yeah. Old school. So Josh, before I butt in again, what is your favorite thing?
I think my favorite thing about this is the pressure. I actually thrive in a high stress environment.
Chunky.
As much as this is where I feel the most comfortable running into a burning building, I need to be outside of the burning building from time to time. Some of you will know me and know that it's really hard for me to take downtime because this is where I really enjoy my where I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. But it's about helping bring order to the chaos. This is a chaotic environment, putting structure around the problems, getting to a place where I'm helping people solve those problems and bring calm to a chaotic situation is what excites me about this space. I mean, the technology, the security aspects, the technical elements, I really like all of that, but that's really where I thrive.
I would say that I don't think my family is necessarily too happy I'm in this space because of the workload. But I'm so thankful that I happen to come across this. Like I think that every day, like I wake up happy to work, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky I found my niche. I found what I was meant to be here for. And I get to fight the bad guys, maybe not in the way that I would have, other people do, but you're still fighting them.
That's a really great point, though, right? Is that it's some people can go their entire career without finding a passion that they enjoy, that drives them to come to work every day. There's a lot of people that they came into a career, they do a job, they feel some satisfaction out of it, but it's a job. It's not I would say ingrained in their life. It is a thing they leave at the office and they go home. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's great that you have that kind of work-life balance. In this field, though, it has to be in your blood.
Work-life integration.
Yeah. But at the same time, you have to figure out, how do I balance that passion with the ability to recharge my batteries, to get that downtime? Even though, like I said, I thrive off of the chaos and the stress, I need to have some amount of downtime in different ways, maybe than other people have it. But
Yeah, and I think it's funny because we're probably the worst people to give advice in this of how do we have that balance. But for me, I think about good technology. It sounds stupid, but I have my work email on my phone and my Slack and all that, and I like having that. I like feeling if I have to go to my kids' activities or something, I still can look at something. And I like that when I go on vacation that I still can make sure I know what's going on, because I don't like, for me, I don't like coming back from vacation and like having this flood of all this old stuff that I need to get through, and then all of a sudden new hot stuff coming in at the same time. So as much as that people would be like, no, you need to shut off. I'm like, no, like that doesn't work for me. And I actually am worse if I try to shut off too much. So,
It
I
triggers
think
your anxiety.
yeah, it triggers more, right, exactly. And so, when I think about the flexibility, and that's what I look for when I work, if I'm working for a company, is what flexibility do they allow me? Do they allow me to work from home if I need to, which now with COVID almost everybody does, but that wasn't always common. And then I think about, can I take a call in the car when I'm taking my kid to school? Can I go and, you know, go to watch my kids' baseball game at 4 o'clock, even though when I was working in a company that worked in California, it was not 4 o'clock their time because I'm on Eastern side. But I was able to always make that work. So thinking about that, that was sort of my major thing. And eventually I learned also to not be afraid to take help. So when I have 3 kids, and when my oldest is 13, when he was first born, I think it was a year and a half in, and I just bought a new house. We were financially not, house poor in a way, and I didn't want to spend money on the babysitting. And I remember taking and having him and taking my work calls and bouncing him while I was watching him, because I only could afford roughly like 10 hours of help. And I mean, I got through it, but the older I get, I think, God, was I stupid? I should have taken the help. I should have figured out to get more support, because it would have helped me with my career later on. I would have made the money tenfold at some point to make up for it. So that's my past Lisa advice. Like, young Lisa should have done that.
Man, the server business sure pays.
I don't know. I think like I see for me it's I don't have the same situation. I don't have kids. I'm married. I have a home life, but I don't have kids. And for me the most important thing is I guess there's a little bit of balance, right? So I do have a passion for what I do, but at the same time, I also know that I am a work to live person, not a live to work person. And to me what's most important is my personal life. It's my family life. I learned that the hard way. And being in the military for 12 years, you learn that your family is actually something that is very losable. And if you don't prioritize, then there are consequences. And so to me, working in a place that allows that sort of flexibility is really, really, it's really important. And I know not everybody has the opportunity to just say like, this job sucks, so I'm going to quit and go to another job. Like, I get that, and I understand that, but I also think that you really should understand your worth, and there are opportunities out there. I mean, we talked about how many cybersecurity jobs are available, and so if you're not being treated the way that you should be treated, then maybe it's time for a change.
People are always afraid to change.
That's a really good point, though, because actually both of you just made a really good point. So some people are feeling the stress, and they're not willing to, or they don't recognize that they are in a demand field where they could make a change if they needed to. They're also sometimes afraid to make that change because change is scary. But then if from the employer's perspective, they have to recognize the stress and try to do things or encourage principles or behaviors or a culture that allows people to bleed off that stress in their own way. Sometimes you can't force people to do it their way. Crow, you were going to say something. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, I was going to say, as leaders, you need to recognize not everyone is outgoing and going to come to you and say, I hate my job, I hate this and that, and give you the chance to help find some better fit for them. The recruiters and people's networks are out there. So if you think your staff is not stressed or your staff is not dissatisfied, you're not doing yourself and your organization good service by kind of being ignorant to that fact. And you need to talk with your staff, your peers, your team, and kind of understand that so you can try to help relieve stress, but also, keep valuable assets. Just because today you got Bob that works in the SOC, maybe he wants to go do architecture, and maybe Sally, the developer, really loves auditing. So that's what you got to talk with your folks, because there is 3 million open positions. So, and if you're going to keep cracking the whip and you're not cognizant that people need to have this balance, even if they don't vocalize it, it's you're going to hurt yourself in the long run.
I keep thinking we probably should stop talking about how many positions are open, because I want to retain my employees. And so, so then I was thinking of the positive things I do when you were saying that. I'm like, we have, we have a happy hour every week. We do coffee time every week. We post pictures of food. We have a water cooler Slack channel where we just post pictures of food or our dogs or our animals, and just I try to make sure that I've gotten, especially with the remote world of COVID, gotten to have the team feel that they're not working and not alone. My company has been very good about putting a lot of mental awareness type of activities out there, and podcasts, and bringing in speakers, motivational type of speakers, and they offer free services if people are feeling depressed. And so like those are all really, really good things that I'm really happy with. Especially I think it was even more important with COVID. I mean, you take all these stressed out security people and then you throw COVID on them, and then it's like, holy cow. And then as a manager, you're trying to manage your team and manage your own self and your kids being home, and and all that stuff, and not being able to see maybe your family as much as you could, or your friends as much as you could, or you were used to.
Yeah, you need to either create that culture or find those aspects that are positive within your organizational culture and get that out to your team. Get it to your, leverage it yourself. We are as guilty or more than a lot of the folks we work with by ignoring the work-life balance guidelines. But it's, again, as a leader, it's our responsibility to make sure that we create that culture that distinguishes us from the guy or the gal down the street, so people do think twice before thinking about leaving. And figure out what opportunities you have to help improve people. And maybe they want to get better at cybersecurity, so they want to do that in their free time, or maybe they want to do basket weaving, or they want to design bridges. Help encourage their passions and kindle that, so they come back to work with that refreshed set of eyes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I when Josh said we were doing research before this, I was at InfoSec Institute has 6 tips, and we naturally have said those 6 tips of throughout this: training and support, right? Educating other people to be more helpful in execs.
Yeah.
Workplace flexibility, what we were talking about, making sure you have that. Collaboration, trying to get your team together, network with other people, network with your peers, and then rotate security roles. Crow, you were just talking about that. Maybe one person somewhere wants to learn another person. And security is a wide range of field that you can do other things, and actually it'll make you more well-balanced. And then it says prioritize self-care. Figure out what your self-care is. Is it exercise? Is it happy hours? What is it? Hanging out with your friends? Is it going to a movie, reading a book? and then, keeping your workloads manageable, which that one is easy to say, not always easy to do, but it is maybe setting the right expectations to your execs above in the first place. Once they earn your trust and say, like, that's unmanageable for us to ever accomplish. We need to set our strategy a little bit better or different. During COVID, I basically took my whole FY21 strategy and I like cut it in half. I was like, we're just not going to be able to do this, and stuff. Okay, go ahead, Josh.
So I have a couple of things I want to touch on. These are all good points, but you have to look at this from two different perspectives. So as an employer or as a manager, or as a leader, you have to look at these and come up with a strategy for how do you apply these to address the stress in the workplace. On the other side, you as the employee have a responsibility here too, right? This is you can't just accept that or expect that your management or your leadership is going to push all this down to you and fix all of your problems. You have to get engaged. You have to be involved in each one of these things. And if we talk about each one of these, one at a time, right? Training and support as an example. A company needs to plan for keeping their staff in this field vibrant. They have to be learning. They have to continue to feel empowered to expand their knowledge about this topic because it's a changing landscape. At the same time, you as an employee have to contribute to that. Look up the things that you would be interested in. As an employer, I can dictate down to you everything that you should be taking, and then you'll be bored, or you won't be satisfied because it's not what I wanted to do, or what you wanted to do. On the flip side, I need to tell my management, these are the things, this is the direction, these are the areas that I'm interested in focusing on, so that it gives them a clue at what to budget for, or what Josh really wants to go do, and encourage me in that direction. And the same thing with workplace flexibility, right? Everybody's got a different flexibility or interest in, and they want to be flexible in different ways. Some people want to work odd hours. Some people want to work the same hours, but they want to stand up desk. It varies. And again, back and forth, you have that same responsibility as an employee to tell your management, this is what I need. And if they're not going to do it, don't listen, Lisa, for just a second. If they're not going to do it, leave, right? Go somewhere else.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right though. There's sometimes little things that could improve your whole everything, like the stand-up desk, like you said, or an ergonomic chair, or a better headset. Don't be afraid to ask for it, because it makes a huge difference. Well, what are you doing, Crow?
Yeah, there's things that so there are token gestures, like things like I need this equipment or that equipment too. But there's also the feeling of being valued. Like, I'm not going to stay, like there used to be, like there was all the fancy, like we're going to have all the sodas in the soda, machine. And you can just that kind of .com sort of environment. And the idea was like, oh, well, the foosball court's going to make people want to stay here. In reality, didn't really work, did it? People, when they feel valued, when they feel heard, then they're willing to create some loyalty, right? They're willing to stay based on feeling a value, right? So there are things that you can do to ensure that your employees feel valued. And I think those are things that are absolutely a requirement. And then, as Josh was saying, I didn't pass corporate mind reading 101. I don't know anybody who did. And so I don't know what you're thinking. I think I know what you think, but I don't actually know what you think. So you have to be brave enough to talk to your peers, talk to your supervisor, talk to your employees, and you have to be able to check in, because a lot of times, I've had it happen to me as a manager. I thought somebody, I had an employee who I thought she was doing a stellar job and she was really happy, and then she came to me and said, "Hey, I'm transferring to another unit," and I'm like, "What? You didn't even tell me that there was a problem?" And she's like, "Yeah, because I didn't think it was going to do anything." I'm like, there were so many things that I could have done if I had known in any way. And so you have to constantly ask people, and I know it seems like a broken record, but you have to constantly say, how do you feel? How are things going? Is there anything I can do to assist? And I used to joke, like every time any of my guys or any of my employees would go, we would go to a meeting of any kind, right? The first thing that I say after every single meeting was, how do you feel that like that went? How do you feel like that went? Not how did that go, or give me a status report of that meeting. How do you feel about that meeting? And I think that goes a long way to making people feel like, not only making people feel like they're being heard, but actually hearing people.
Right. And I think that's really important, right? That we don't feel enough in this industry, in the tech industry in general. Feeling is sometimes a little awkward.
Well, I think it's also because of all our stress factors. We're normally in, and we normally go right into, we have to solve this right now. What's our approach? How do we do it? And sometimes it's like people may feel that their opinion isn't valued because we just didn't even have time to explore that other option. We had to just go and fix and go now. Like we have a customer on fire, right? Like, or something. So it's unfortunate because I think in our world, you could feel devalued because you just sometimes have to go in and jump in and do. And so how do you find those moments for the employees to have the time to be able to brainstorm and think about a new topic or a new adventure or a new something besides just go, 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 we're on fire?
And I think that touches on that third item that you mentioned, right? Encourage collaboration. And this goes back to what Katie, you were saying too, right? The collaboration has to come from both sides. You as an employee should be talking to your management, talking to your leadership, helping them understand where your pain points are. Collaboration isn't just about exchanging information that's about the job you're doing. It's about talking about how you feel, talking about what matters to you. And as an employer, you need to be listening to this, right? You may not be able to solve every problem, but you should get a sense of, at the very least, the direction that stress level is going, where the problems are, what's the I was going to say the slope, but that's not really the right terminology. But what's the trend? Where's the trend going, right? And
slope, positive or negative slope?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. All right. So,
but
I was using the right term. And rotating security roles. I mean, Spice is, or I'm sorry, what's the saying about?
Variety is the spice of life.
Thank you. Right.
We're
Variety.
bad on our quotes today.
Thank you. Yeah. No, but that's really, I think, a true statement for a lot of people, right? Even if you're doing the same thing over and over, right? So
I'm gonna be the biggest Debbie Downer here. So this is your trigger warning.
yes.
This is serious. Like work-life balance is serious. It's real serious. And I know we joke about it and like we try to make light of things, but I will tell you that the single worst day of pretty much my entire life. So I was in the military for 12 years. I was shot at in the desert. I spent 4 years in Afghanistan getting blown up on a regular basis. That's what I did. I was an explosives analyst. And I will tell you that the worst day of my life was not a combat adventure. It was a suicide. And that's what happens when people don't feel like there's a way out. And that's when you have to ask yourself, what happened? And that's, and I know that's the extreme, right? So a little bit of burnout's one thing and suicide's another, but that's the extreme. And the fact is that the suicide rates are much higher now than they've ever been before.
Well,
not outside the realm of the pale, Katie, because now we're in a global pandemic where there's a lot of concerns around health and economic situations and well-being, and you're isolated. So absolutely, those factors are augmented, amplified, I would say.
Right. And you have to ask yourself, how did we fail him?
Yeah. Oh, and even people that have not taken their own life, but I've been there for people who have literally worked themselves to death. that have gone to bed one night and did not wake up the next morning because they had been working 100 and 120-hour work weeks for a consistent period of time, and they just expired. And it goes back to that question you just asked: how did we fail them, and how can we help them? And this kind of touches on one of the bullets that Lisa brought up about prioritizing self-care. You have, at some point, you have to stop and say, how is this improving the quality of my life? How can I, what things can I be doing to make things better for me? And if the stress is not improving the quality of your life, stop, take a step back, give yourself a break, go exercise, go spend time with friends and family, read a book, watch a movie, talk to somebody, talk to a healthcare professional if you feel like it will help.
There's so many free services now too.
Yes, there are, right?
Well, I'm a COVID tennis player, a COVID golf player, and a COVID dog owner. I think the dog might have added more stress to my life, but the tennis and the golf, it couldn't be my normal go to the gym exercise class because I couldn't go anymore to the gym. So I found other outlets out there. And in my area, a lot of people are always walking and outside or some kind of exercise, like taking a work call on, while you're taking a walk outside when it was a little warmer. I was definitely doing that more often.
But the problem is that right now, there are a lot of different, the pandemic heightens it, right? And so right now there are a lot of people who are single and they live by themselves. And so when you think about that, they've been in isolation for all of these months, and the only people that they interact with are their coworkers.
Yep.
And so you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to what other people are feeling. We can't always just go straight into meetings. We have to check in with each other.
You're right. We definitely spend more time in the beginning or the end of the meeting socializing. How's the weather? What's going on there? Oh, how are you doing? Like, oh, it's sun here. I did a few other things. Like, I sent my team happy lights. All of them, I bought them all happy lights. It sounds really cheesy, but one of my good friends got me into it, and it is just like a light therapy type of thing. And even if it doesn't necessarily medically work, it makes me feel like it's working, like I'm happy. And then I sent one of my teammates couldn't really do the whole Christmas tree thing. I sent like a mini Christmas tree with mini ornaments and stuff, so then they could still, she wasn't feeling well for a while, so I wanted her to still have something for the holidays. So it's like you said, those little gestures and things like that can go a long way, especially right now.
Yeah, and I think that also dovetails into the last item you brought up about keeping workloads manageable. You have to recognize where your limits are and know what's really important in your life, so that you don't overburden yourself with solving all the problems. You can't fix everything. You have to take advantage of those little lifelines that are given by, the little tokens that Lisa was talking about are reminders for all of us that there's only so much work that we can do, and there's at times when we have to reflect on the personal side of our life, and we have to spend time taking care of ourselves, right? I want to go back to something that Katie, that you talked about the suicide, and I think this is really is an important topic. We're all in the United States, and the United States has a national suicide prevention lifeline. So if you are thinking about this, if you feel like you're struggling, take a moment, take the time now, pick up the phone and call 1-800-273-8255. There's somebody on the other side that'll help you. Don't wait to make that call. In any other country that's listening to this, I'm sure that most countries have some kind of a suicide prevention hotline. But there's always hope on the other side. So
Yeah, I'm gonna take off another thing on there. So for those of you in our field already, right? Um, I I mean, a lot of us met through First. So think about the meetups, the organizational outreach. There, I know, like near me, there's a Security and Beers group. The OWASP chapters and these chapters, but like there's a lot of your peers there, and they're all dealing with the same type of thing. And what I think is also nice is that lately it's more, a lot of the groups are saying, this is what I've had to deal with, and this is what my stressors are at work or something, and how can we help solve this for our industry. So like when my last company that I worked with, education, I didn't have enough employees to be able to do the education. So I went to First and said, hey, we really should be working on some education, like that would be one thing that I really need to help support me in my job, and other industries I'm sure will need it too. So, and then we came together and we started working on it. And I'm looking through this list of the 10 most stressful aspects of the cybersecurity job that Tech Republic did, and it says keeping up with the needs and new IT initiatives, finding out about things that we started or were started within my organization that had no security oversight on it. All of a sudden you get there's a new product, and you're like,
That never happens.
yeah, never happened. Trying to get end users to understand cybersecurity risks and change their behavior accordingly. Try to get the business to understand cyber risks, the overwhelming workflow, constant emergencies and disruptions, fear of getting something wrong, keeping up with internal and regulatory compliance audits, monitoring the security status of third parties the organization does business with, and sorting through all the security technologies within my organization and things like that. So when you take all of those, I think that there's a lot of them we've been trying to work to accomplish or to reduce our stress, right? How do we keep up with the new initiatives? How do we communicate about that? How do we get end users to understand cybersecurity risks? Like, we've been working on education for that for First. How do we get the business to understand that we've been working on education first? I sound like a commercial for them right now, but it's because we in the industry come together to say, these are our stressors. How can we figure out how to help each other accomplish this? Because we may not have enough within our own company because of this lack of cybersecurity skills. So how do we utilize the industry to help us, get through this?
And I think that's really a good point. These industry groups are great ways to bleed off the stress. A lot of the organizations we're a part of have their own decompression sessions or therapy sessions or happy hours, so that you can vent to people that really do understand what you do, right? You don't have to spend a lot of time explaining the background. You get to just vent and share it. So
right. Yeah, and that's how we all got to know each other here. So look at us. See, we're utilizing ourselves to help. We're self-helping each other.
Yeah, we are, right? This is as much for us as it is for you all that are watching this. So
I wonder if I'd say this started out way more for us.
Absolutely. Hopefully somebody gets something out of this, but otherwise it is more for us to be able to release that stress and to commiserate with people that understand. And so with that, I would say that for all of you listening and watching, to think about who you can reach out to have a productive conversation about how to get better work-life balance, less stress in your life, to still enjoy your job, and to stay in the cybersecurity industry, because we want you to stay here and teach us all something new that we didn't know before. So thanks everybody for listening. This has been a great session. Thank you, Katie, Lisa, Crow. Always a wonderful session to have.